Hi guys, I'm Inga. I am Girl Gone Bookish here on YouTube. So Wednesday is supposed to be the day that I upload my Wreck It Wednesday vlog, but when I went to edit it, it was terrible. I suck at editing and I wasn't happy with it. So I went and closed my whole editing program out and in turn deleted the whole thing from my memory card and everything. So that will not be uploaded this week. So I'll have to do a whole new one until next week. And I'm not happy with my editing, but now instead of getting angry and accidentally deleting the whole thing, I know a way to film it that will make it better. So I still plan on doing that. It may or may not pan out. I've been looking for something to do on Wednesdays. So that's what I'm going to be doing and hopefully it'll work out. So we'll see. However, I decided to take this opportunity to do my January wrap up because I haven't done that yet and I read a lot of books in January. Also, I noticed when I got ready to film this video, I didn't do any reviews, which is kind of a big deal because part of me being a part of BookTube is that I wanted to connect with more people and more books and talk about all of the books that we read. So I want to do a lot more reviews this year and get it with more people who like the same things that I do, and we can share thoughts and ideas and things like that about books. So I was disappointed in myself, so I'm just going to do mini reviews for this month's wrap up, and then next month I will just show you the books that I read for the month of February, and I will do more reviews throughout the month. If you want to see a full review on any of these books, please let me know in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to squeeze that in at some point this month. So I read 9 books in the month of January, so I'm just going to get started, especially if I'm going to do like a little mini review with each one. I don't want this to be incredibly long. So I'm going to get started and I'll see you guys in a second. So the first book I read in 2014 is Home of the Brave by Katherine Applegate. I got this on clearance for $1 at Half Price Books in the middle grade section, and it was $1 well spent. It was really well written for a middle grade book, and I believe she's won a couple of awards for this book. But anyway, it's about a boy who comes from Africa. His dad and his brother were killed and he was separated from his mother. So he is brought to America to live with his aunt and his cousin. And it's all about him getting used to our country, and he comes in the winter, which is something he's never experienced having lived in Africa. So it's all about his transition and him wondering what has happened to his mother. And it's just a really, really good, deep book, actually, surprisingly deep. And I took a lot from it. Overall, I would give this 4 out of 5 stars. The second book in 2014 that I read is The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. This is about a girl named Tana, or Tana, however you want to say her name, and about the world in which she lives. Her world is very similar to ours, except it has gone cold, meaning that there are vampires, and if you get bitten by a vampire, you have 30 days. I believe it's 30 days, and if you don't drink human blood, then you will not turn into a vampire. And there are cold towns. Every vampire has to go into a cold town. And humans can go willingly if they want to, but once you go into a cold town, you can never come out. So it starts off really, really well. She wakes up in a bathtub at a party and all of her friends have been slaughtered by vampires. And it's all about her journey into this cold town and what happens when she gets there and why she goes there. The ending is amazing, and I really think even though this is a standalone, it's set up for a second book. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I really hope there is a second book. This is probably one of the few books that I would say that I wish there was a sequel or that this was a trilogy to. I don't think that it could be a whole series, but a second book would definitely be awesome. I would give this book a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I might change that to a 5 out of 5. I'm not sure, but it was just really good, and I think this is what a YA vampire novel should be about. The vampires want to kill you and drink your blood. They are not sparkly, falling in love with you kind of vampires. The third book that I read is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I picked this up because I heard so many people talking about it. I had to know what all the hype was about. Usually I don't read really, really popular books because they hardly ever live up to my expectations. That being said, this was an awesome book. I would not give it 5 out of 5 stars. I didn't love it like a lot of booktubers did. I think on GoodReads I only gave it 3 stars, but I'm definitely going to bump it up to 4. It's one of those books that it took me a couple days, like I had to think about it for a few days and see how I really felt about it. This was in the science fiction section of my bookstore, and I was expecting just like general fiction. And I've never really read any science fiction, fantasy stuff, whatever it's called, before, so it was different for me. But I ended up really liking it. It was just crazy and I don't know, just really cool. You could take a lot away from this book. It was super short. It took me, I don't know, a day, couple hours, 8 hours or so to read. I'm not really sure. But it was a really great book, and I do suggest it to anyone who likes Neil Gaiman, or I think it's a really good introductory novel to Neil Gaiman. It's not his first novel, of course, but if you haven't read anything by him, I think this would be a good place for you to start because it's short and it's really from the very beginning interesting. I also read A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This was a great book. I really loved it. I really just enjoyed getting into this book and reading it. I love reading about witches and things like that. And basically this is about a woman who is a witch. She knows she's a witch, but she's never used her powers because of something tragic that has happened to her in her life. So she meets a man who is a vampire, and they kind of start this relationship, and I don't know, just all kinds of good things are going on in this book. I really enjoyed it. It is a very long read. A lot of detail and description in the setting, and I mean, just everything down to her clothes, what she's wearing, down to the food they ate. There's a lot of description, but I really enjoyed that, and the author did it in a way that I didn't get bored. So I love this book. Definitely a 4 out of 4 stars. And I have the second, which is The Shadow of Night, which I hopefully will read sometime in probably February or March. I also read Harbinger by Sarah Wilson. I'm not sure how to say her name. This book for me was like a 2 or maybe a 3 out of star book. Basically, it's about a girl, and she is sent off to a special school by her father because she's like troubled, they think. And she meets up with these other like weird kids. It's more like a prison, just very weird setup, but I don't know, I don't even know how to describe this. Anyway, she can prevent or cause the end of human civilization to save the planet, and she talks about the damage we're doing to our planet. So it does have a good message in the book, but I don't know, it just wasn't that great for me. The second half of the book was a lot better, and if the author had written that way through the entire thing, it would have been a lot better. But for the most part, I really didn't care for this book. I also picked up The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner by Stephanie Meyer. Now, don't laugh, but I never read this book. I really liked the entire Twilight series, but this is a book that I just never picked up because I hate these little like half like novellas or whatever. I hate that authors do that. However, I see it on everyone's bookshelf, and I was like, you know, I should probably pick it up. And then I found it for $1 at Half Price Books. And I actually really enjoyed this book. It's definitely a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I kind of wish Bree Tanner had her own series, but I think I said it once before in another video. It would be a very short series, of course, because she didn't live very long. But it was surprisingly well written and really interesting. So I really wish that Twilight had been more like this book than it was like Twilight, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? I also wanted to squeeze in at least one classic this month, so I picked up The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I've seen this book everywhere. I have a super old kind of copy of it. I love it. So if you haven't read this book, it's about some boys, and I think the youngest is like 6. There's a bunch of boys that are younger, and then there's a group of older boys, but I think the older boys are still quite young. I'm not sure if it even mentions an age in here of the older boys, but basically what happens is they are stuck on an island, and they decide to elect one of them a chief. I don't know. It's just all about what happens when these boys try to have order, but then some of them break off, and there's some conflict, and there's death, and there's all kinds of good things. There's a monster on the island, or so they think. It's full of symbolism, and it's actually really deep and surprising. I got a lot out of this book, more than I thought. And I don't know, it's just really good. I really wish I had read it in high school like I was supposed to. This is definitely a book that I would reread, and I suggest it to anyone who wants to get into classics. Not a whole lot happens in this book by way of action, but it's enough to keep you interested the whole way through the book. And then you have to keep reading to know if they're rescued at the end or not, or if they end up killing each other off. You have to read it to find out. I would give The Lord of the Flies 4 out of 5 stars, maybe 5 out of 5. I also read 2 ebooks this month, the first being 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup. I don't have my Nook with me handy, but I will insert a picture somewhere over here. This book I didn't even know was a book until I heard about the film 12 Years a Slave, and it has won all kinds of awards, and I think Brad Pitt is in it. Am I making that up? But I think he is. But I saw it on the Critics' Choice Awards and it got all kinds of awards, so I wanted to see if it was a book, and it was. And it's just totally different from the slave books that I have read before, because this man, actually, Solomon Northup, it's a true story about what happened to him. He lived his whole life in freedom in a northern state, I believe New York maybe, or somewhere in around New York. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've read it. But he's lived his whole life as a free man, and then one day he is kidnapped and sold into slavery, and he is a slave for 12 years, and it's all of the things that he encounters and endures as a slave, and how his slavery is different because he was free. So it's all about how he deals with it and what happens to him and his family. It was a really good book. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Again, lots of 4 out of 5 stars this month, but I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. I really love reading books like this. However, if you do pick up this book to read, I think you can get it for like 99 cents on your e-reader. But if you do pick it up, just know that it reads a little bit like a history book. The writing in the time period that it was written is a lot different than our writing now and how we word things. So it is a lot different, and it is very factual, sort of like reading a history book. But don't let that put you off. Just read a couple of pages a day if that's what you want to do. It's still a very, very good, important piece of work that I think everyone should read. And this last book I'm not going to insert a picture of, but it was by Virginia Wade. You can look her up on GoodReads to find out what she writes. She writes erotic fiction. And the reason I read one of her books, I'm not even going to say which one. You can go on my GoodReads if you really want to know. But the reason I read one of her books was because I read that she is a New York Times bestselling author, which you don't hear a lot of erotic fiction authors being New York Times bestselling authors. So that got my attention. And the fact that she makes $30,000 a month writing what she writes. Once I heard that, I was like, I have to look this woman up and see what she's writing. So I did, and I saw what she was writing, and I was like, I can write that. Anybody can write that for $30,000 a month. So I decided to download one of her books. It was $2.99 and it was about 40 pages, but I'm still gonna count it. And you know, as far as the erotic part, it really did nothing for me, but it made me laugh. They are hysterical. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, but don't judge me, okay? Don't judge me. But she writes erotic fiction about Bigfoot and other like aliens, I think, and things like that. I downloaded her first Bigfoot book and it was hysterical. Like, I laughed so hard, and then I thought, oh my gosh, if I die, this is on my Nook and my husband is gonna find it, or whoever finds my body I'm gonna die laughing, because I mean, it is really funny. But she's making $30,000 a month writing this stuff, so I had to check it out. I had to know what it was all about. So I'm counting that as one of my books because I had to endure 40 pages of Bigfoot porn. So yeah. Anyway, that is what I read for the month of January. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I don't do, you know, TBR things. I don't do that. I just kind of grab whatever is on my shelf. But I will see you guys next month. Next month is my birthday, so I'm going to have a pretty large haul of books for you, and then I'm not going to do one for a while. I have to read the books I have because I am becoming a book hoarder, and it's embarrassing. So I will see you guys for Friday reads. And unless I post this later, I never know when I'm gonna post things. So anyway guys, I will see you later. Have a good week. Bye.